What if I told you that uh, the reason your professional outreach emails are failing is actually because you're trying to get the recipient to say yes to your idea?
Right, which sounds completely counterintuitive, I know.
Exactly. I mean, it goes against everything we sort of assume about pitching.
Yeah.
But today's source material argues that the perfect cold email actually has a completely different, much smaller goal in mind.
Yeah, that assumption that an email's job is to close a deal or secure a partnership, that's the fundamental flaw driving most outreach straight into the spam folder.
Straight to the trash.
Exactly. So we're looking at a strategy document today titled B2B Email Templates for Reaching Out to Potential Collaborators.docs. And what it actually offers is, well, it's basically a masterclass in behavioral psychology.
And cognitive load management, too. Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We want to decode the exact anatomy of the perfect outreach email, understand the mechanics of why certain messages trigger immediate rejection, and, uncover how, no matter your industry or role, can use this to unlock major growth.
Because eventually you are going to need to ask someone for a professional favor, right?
Oh, inevitably. You'll need to propose a joint venture or tap into a new network. It happens to all of us.
And collaboration really acts as the primary engine for exponential growth. The text identifies three specific outcomes of getting this right.
Building durable professional relationships,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, that's the first one. Building those relationships, increasing brand visibility across overlapping audiences, and generating long-term recurring revenue through systemic referrals.
But, I mean, none of those outcomes materialize if you fail that initial contact.
They absolutely do not.
So we really need to unpack the why behind this shift toward highly curated outreach before we look at the templates themselves. Because for years, the prevailing wisdom in digital marketing was purely volume-based.
Oh, the spray and pray method.
Exactly. You'd scrape 10,000 addresses, blast out a generic pitch, and just rely on a tiny fraction of percent converting.
What's fascinating here is how the source elevates the outreach email far beyond a simple digital correspondence. In a digital-first landscape, your email operates as your brand's literal first impression.
Right.
When you send a mass-produced, scraped list pitch, you signal to the recipient that their specific value to you is zero.
They're just a number on a spreadsheet.
Just a metric, exactly. The document outlines a pivot back to curated outreach because the modern professional's inbox is a highly defended fortress.
It's a war zone in there.
Right. And to breach it, you need surgical precision, not a battering ram.
Well, the document lays out 4 non-negotiable structural elements required to make that breach successful. You need a personalized subject line, a personalized introduction, a clear value proposition, and a strong call to action.
But knowing the components is entirely different from understanding the underlying mechanics of how they actually function together.
Right, like how they play off each other.
Yeah. The subject line acts as the gatekeeper. The intro establishes immediate relevance. The value prop answers the recipient's internal what's in it for me algorithm. And the CTA provides the escape route.
Okay, let me challenge this emphasis on deep personalization right out of the gate, though. Because if I'm trying to grow a business rapidly, I need scale, right?
Sure.
Taking 20 minutes to research every single prospect's background, listen to their recent interviews, and craft this bespoke subject line, that just isn't scalable.
It's not.
So how does the document suggest we balance this need for a tailored handshake with the reality that, I don't know, a sales team might need to send 50 of these a day?
Well, the text implicitly addresses this tension by redefining what personalization actually means in a B2B context.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't mean knowing their dog's name or commenting on their recent vacation photos.
Thank goodness. That's always so creepy.
Super creepy, right? No, it means contextual alignment. If we look at the specific subject line, examples provided phrases like collaboration opportunity between our brands, or let's collaborate to create better customer experiences. They aren't highly intimate.
Right. They're not digging into personal lives.
They are highly contextual. They signal immediately that the sender understands the recipient's specific market position.
So the personalized subject line is less about deep intimacy and more about proving you aren't a robot executing a script.
Exactly.
It signals context before the email is even opened. It's like walking up to a stranger at a networking event. If you just shout your name and walk away, that's a generic blast.
Right. It acts as a cognitive filter. The source notes that businesses are increasingly focusing on this targeted approach because a contextual subject line proves to the recipient that you've done the baseline calculus of why a conversation makes logical sense.
Ah, I see.
If you fail to pass that initial filter, the brilliance of the content inside is completely irrelevant. They just delete it.
So knowing those four elements gives us the foundation, but the document actually provides three specific templates. The structure here is fascinating because it doesn't just offer three variations of the same pitch.
No, it maps out a clear trajectory of trust escalation.
Right, it's an architecture of relationship building. Let's look at the baseline level. Template 1 is labeled the simple collaboration.
Which is a great starting point.
Yeah, the language focuses heavily on complementing audiences. The framing is essentially, I've been following your work in this specific vertical, our brand focuses on a parallel service, and I see a natural overlap for our audiences.
The mechanism at work here is establishing a low-stakes common ground. It requires zero immediate commitment from the recipient.
Right, you're not asking for a check.
Exactly. You are simply pointing out an existing ecosystem overlap. It's ideal for opening a dialogue with a brand you admire where you haven't yet formulated a rigid, multi-tiered campaign strategy.
Then we escalate to template 2, which is the referral partnership. This zeroes in on a natural alignment of services and mutual visibility.
A bit more involved.
Yeah, the template explicitly pitches a two-way street, proposing that the two businesses actively refer clients to one another.
And the underlying psychology shifts here from mere observation to mutual incentive. You're telling the recipient, I possess a resource, my client base, that requires your specific expertise, and I recognize you have the same need regarding my services.
It formalizes an organic process.
Right, turning abstract goodwill into a practical revenue-generating mechanism.
Finally, we reach template 3, the strategic collaboration. Now, this is a much heavier lift. The language highlights deep synergy, improving the overall customer experience and expanding market reach.
Yeah, it's proposing joint ventures or co-branded campaigns.
Exactly.
This template is reserved for high-level growth initiatives. Proposing a co-branded product or a major joint marketing campaign requires overcoming a much higher risk threshold for the recipient.
Because their brand reputation is now on the line alongside yours.
Precisely. Therefore, the value proposition has to be intensely clear and highly beneficial to their specific customer base.
Okay, let's unpack this. I'm analyzing all three of these templates, and the most striking feature across the board is how aggressively short they are.
Yeah, they really are.
I mean, they are barely 3 or 4 sentences. If I am pitching a complex strategic collaboration that involves integrating our marketing efforts, shouldn't I be explaining the mechanics of my business? Providing case studies, linking my portfolio so they know I have the infrastructure to pull it off.
That's our natural instinct, right? When pitching, we tend to over-explain to validate our own worth.
Yeah, totally.
We assume that if we just provide enough data, the recipient will logically arrive at yes, but the common mistakes section of the document explicitly warns against writing long emails.
Oh, really? It calls it out directly.
It does, because when you send a 4-paragraph email filled with links, background history, and detailed proposals, you are transferring an enormous burden of cognitive labor onto the recipient.
You're forcing them to do the work of figuring out what you actually want from them.
Exactly. You're triggering immediate decision fatigue. The text insists that messages must be short and value-driven because of a fundamental psychological reality.
Which is?
The email is not designed to close the deal.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. The email's only functional purpose is to secure the call to action. You aren't asking them to sign a binding contract. You're asking them to agree that a further conversation is worth their time.
That reframes the entire process. The email sells the meeting, not the partnership.
Precisely.
And that brings us to the specific CTA the document relies on. Across all these escalating templates, it leans on one exact phrasing, which is, would you be available for a quick 15-minute call next week to discuss this collaboration opportunity?
That sentence is engineered to remove nearly all cognitive resistance.
But why specifically 15 minutes, and why next week?
Well, it's a masterclass in low-friction requests. Requesting 30 or 60 minutes requires the recipient to actively rearrange their schedule, right?
Right, which feels like a chore.
Exactly. A 15-minute window, however, can easily fit into the interstitial spaces of a workday. Between larger meetings, maybe during a commute.
Almost anyone has 15 minutes.
Right. And specifying next week is equally vital. It defers the commitment to a future version of the recipient, a version they psychologically perceive as being less busy than they are today.
Oh, that's so true. Next week me always has free time.
Always. It's a safe, highly manageable micro-commitment.
So we have the mechanics of the pitch here. We bypass the spam filter with contextual relevance, minimize cognitive load with brevity, and lower resistance with a micro-commitment CTA.
Yep, that's the formula.
But the document grounds this theoretical framework in real-world application, repeatedly pointing to the wedding industry as the ultimate test case.
The wedding sector is an ideal laboratory for this because of the unique structural mechanics of the market.
Right, think about planners, photographers, caterers, venues. The entire industry functions as one massive, decentralized web of referrals.
Yeah, a venue secures a client, and immediately that client needs a caterer. The caterer needs a florist.
The florist needs a rental company.
Exactly. No single business entity can provide the comprehensive end product of a wedding to the consumer. They are structurally forced to collaborate.
And the emotional stakes for the end consumer are incredibly high.
Which means the trust between those collaborating vendors has to be absolute. I mean, a photographer won't refer a videographer unless they know with certainty that the videographer won't ruin the client's experience.
Makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the document introduces a platform called Weddizer to illustrate how technology is evolving to manage this exact environment. But the text treats it as a known entity. How does a software platform actually integrate with the cold email strategies we've just dissected?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, an email is just the spark. It establishes the initial connection.
Right, the handshake.
But managing 50 different referral partners across text messages, scattered spreadsheets, and messy inboxes creates massive operational drag.
A total nightmare.
Yeah, so a platform like Weddizer essentially functions as a specialized CRM, a customer relationship management tool built specifically to capture and structure those decentralized relationships.
Oh, so it takes the chaos of I know a guy and turns it into a formalized, trackable ecosystem.
It centralizes the referral mechanism, exactly.
Huh.
Once you use the personalized outreach template to successfully initiate a relationship with a new venue, you pull them into an ecosystem like Weddizer to standardize the actual exchange of value.
Yeah.
It transitions the interaction from a one-off favor into a scalable, systemic partnership.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at the raw file of this source document, it includes something you rarely see left in a final draft.
Oh yeah, the metadata.
Yeah. Right at the bottom, there's a block of metadata. It lists SEO tags like B2B networking and vendor collaboration. It features drafted social media captions with hashtags like hashtag lead generation. It even includes proposed YouTube video title, B2B email templates that actually get replies.
We're seeing the structural scaffolding of the content itself. The document is essentially a piece of content marketing designed to rank in search algorithms.
But what does the inclusion of that specific metadata reveal about the broader business landscape? I mean, why optimize an article about email templates so heavily for search engines?
It reveals a profound pain point in the market.
Really? Just from the SEO tags?
Yeah, the high search volume required to justify targeting long-tail keywords like business collaboration email examples indicates that professionals are actively failing at this and desperately hunting for solutions.
They're watching their open rates plummet to 1% and realizing the spray and pray era is dead.
Exactly. The marketplace is entirely saturated. Decision makers are overwhelmed by noise.
So true.
The inclusion of this SEO metadata reinforces the document's core thesis. The businesses that master personalized, low-friction outreach are the ones capturing the market share simply because everyone else is still shouting into the void with generic blasts.
And that brings us to the friction points, the deal breakers that guarantee failure. We've established that generic blasts break the initial trust, and long emails impose an unacceptable cognitive tax.
Right.
But the document highlights one final, fatal error, and that is ignoring the follow-up. It states, and I quote, "Many successful collaborations happen after a polite follow-up."
This raises an important question regarding psychological projection in business communication.
What do you mean?
Think about how many massive, highly profitable partnerships never materialized simply because someone sent an initial email, received no reply, and internalized that silence as a definitive rejection.
Oh, yeah. We immediately assumed they read the pitch, hated the idea, and were insulted by our audacity to even reach out.
We project our own insecurities onto their lack of response, but the reality is usually far more mundane.
They just forgot.
They opened the email on their phone while waiting for an elevator, mentally noted that it sounded interesting, and then stepped into a meeting and completely forgot it existed.
So the follow-up isn't about pestering someone who has already said no. It's about rescuing an opportunity from the chaos of a busy professional's attention span.
Exactly. A concise, polite follow